I've been thinking about these two terms, performance and performative, because they are quite different terms, even though I presume they must have a common origin in some word to do with performance. I'll check that when I get home. But they certainly come to mean very different things and operate in very different knowledge domains, really. The way that, for example, Judith Butler uses the term performative in relation to various aspects of identity is completely different to the way that Austin used it in language, for example. And indeed performance itself is used in very different ways. In John Mackenzie's book, Perform or Else, he talks about the word performance as it's used in, for example, business, as opposed to how it's used within a kind of theatrical context. And makes a convincing case for an overlap between those understandings, but it doesn't talk about performativity at all in there. So there's a distinction made between an largely unspoken distinction between performance and performativity there, and that distinction also is brought out in a book by Mika Ball, Travelling Concepts in the Humanities, who points out that sort of historical drifting apart of performance and performativity into various different usages. One of the things that I've come across recently, or that I'm finding quite useful, is David Perkins' use of the word performative in understanding of different types of knowledge. I've spoken about this before. He locates performative knowledge as being a type of knowledge that lies between what he calls proactive knowledge and what he calls possessive knowledge. Possessive knowledge to Perkins is the kind of knowledge that can be sort of picked up and transferred. It's hard data, facts, that kind of relatively straightforward empirical understanding of knowledge, the kind of thing you would find at the end of an empirical knowledge gathering process. It's a scientific fact or something like that. And it has this kind of scopic quality to it. It seems to be positioned out there in interpersonal, visible space. And conversely, proactive knowledge in Perkins, which is kind of coterminous with the tacit knowledge that you find in Polanyi and other sorts of formulations. Proactive is much more dispositional. It's much more located inside the body of the knower, and is in many ways inseparable from that, the identity and the personality of that knower. So you get this distinction there. So proactive and possessive knowledge in Perkins are kind of arrayed across that space, with performative knowledge being this rather interesting epistemological entity located halfway across. So the way I'm conceiving that is that the performative knowledge is kind of out here, and it's here I'm waving my hand, but it's kind of out here in proximal space, exterior to the body, in a way that proactive knowledge isn't, but not distanced, and apart from the body in a way that can't be tinkered with, that you find with possessive knowledge. So I think there's that location of performative knowledge in that kind of proximal space gives it some unusual features and relate it very specifically to certain embodied understandings and embodied practices, if you like. Morning.
Good morning.
One of the things I'm thinking about, for example, is what is the metaphorical relationships between that space and the various entailments which come with that location. If we're locating performative knowledge as kind of here, kind of accessible here, then what other baggage comes with that location? The first one, and I think some of that baggage that comes with it actually ties it back into that older understanding of performance and performativity, in which they're much more closely linked before they started drifting apart into different domains of practice. One of the things that I think comes with that location is that performative knowledge is that which is accessible by the hands. So it has a kind of haptic, manual quality to it. And Perkins talks about performative knowledge or a possessor of performative knowledge as someone who is capable of doing things with thought. So you're doing things with thinking. So he describes it almost like a craft, like handicraft in a sense. So that almost as if your hands are reaching into conceptual space in front of oneself and crafting ideas, putting ideas together, bolting them together, smushing them together, and so on. So it has that sort of haptic quality, I think, to it. The second quality, I think, about this space, and this is something that Rebecca Solnit mentions, I think it's Rebecca Solnit, in a really lovely book called Wanderlust, about history of walking. She talks about the quite close relationship between the space in which our hands operate and the space in which our feet take us as we walk. So that space in front of us, the performative space, as I'm identifying in Perkins, is not only the space in which our hands reach and do stuff, it's also the space in which we are constantly moving. If not literally, then in terms of our intentionality, but often literally, we do step forward into the future. And that idea of futurity is also very important, I think. And it comes with the territory of that entailment. Eve Sweetser mentions this kind of asymmetry in our embodied understanding, in which we have a brightly lit space in front of us and a dark space kind of behind us. And the brightly lit space in front of us, for most cultures at least, is the future. It is the place in which we are stepping. It is there's our destiny, if you like, in front of us. And that stepping into that brightly lit space, and this is, I'm making a little bit of a reach here, and I will acknowledge that, is if you like, a kind of archetypal performative moment. The stepping onto the brightly lit stage, the becoming visible, what is it that Peggy Phelan talks about? It's that non-recoverable moment at which it's becoming present, and the darkness is constantly enveloping one as one steps forward. Moment of dying, if you like. I think she talks about it, but I would also consider a kind of moment of coming to life as one comes to light. So I think in that performative space, I'm trying to cover a lot of ground here, but in that performative space that Perkins was identifying, or at least that I'm interpreting out of Perkins, it brings with it a whole raft of other entailments and understandings to do with proximity, to do with the availability of that space for personal interaction, and the laying on of hands, also the possibility of that space for an entry into that space, a constant stepping forward into that space, and related to that, the temporal idea that we are stepping forward into the constantly proceeding now, the moment of presence, and out of the dark. And I think all of those, if you like, tie into this overall concept of performance and the performative. Maybe.